Have you ever had a moment that completely altered the course of your life? A split-second decision, maybe even one made in jest, that ended up rewriting your entire future? That's exactly what happened to Michael Collins, a 38-year-old single father who thought he was just playing along with a harmless prank when he agreed to a blind date set up by his well-meaning but meddlesome sister. Little did he know that the widow he was about to meet would turn his carefully structured world upside down in ways he never could have imagined. If you've ever believed in second chances or the unexpected ways love finds us when we least expect it, this story will touch your heart. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that remind us of the beautiful unpredictability of life. Michael stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie for the third time. He couldn't remember the last time he'd been this nervous. Actually, that wasn't true. He could remember perfectly. It was 7 years ago, the day Emma was born, the day he became both a father and, effectively, a single parent in the span of 24 devastating hours. "Dad, Aunt Sarah's here." Emma's voice echoed up the stairs, pulling Michael from his thoughts. "Coming, sweetheart?" he called back, giving his reflection one final critical look. At 38, the lines around his eyes had deepened, and flecks of gray had begun to appear at his temples. He wasn't the same carefree man he'd been in his 20s, before responsibility and grief had reshaped him. Downstairs, his sister Sarah was kneeling to Emma's height, helping the 7-year-old adjust the sparkly headband in her dark curls that were so reminiscent of her mother's that sometimes it made Michael's chest ache just to look at her. "Well, don't you clean up nice," Sarah said with a smirk as Michael descended the stairs. "Almost like you care about this date." "It's not a date, Michael," corrected automatically. "It's a social obligation I'm fulfilling to get you off my back." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Call it whatever helps you sleep at night, big brother. But Claire is wonderful, and you two have so much in common. Yes, we're both members of the Tragically Lost Our Spouses Club." "Super fun conversation starter," Michael replied dryly. "Dad, don't be grumpy," Emma chided, looking up at him with those serious brown eyes that seemed to hold wisdom far beyond her years. "Aunt Sarah says Miss Claire has a daughter my age. Maybe we can be friends." Michael softened immediately, as he always did under his daughter's gaze. "You're right, Em. I'll be on my best behavior." He knelt down to her level. "You be good for Aunt Sarah, okay? Bedtime is 8:30, I know," Emma finished for him. "And no scary movies, and brush my teeth for 2 whole minutes." Michael smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "That's my girl." As he grabbed his keys and headed for the door, Sarah called after him, "Remember, the reservation is under my name at Bellini's." "And Michael?" He turned back. "Try to have fun. It's been 7 years. It's okay to live a little." Michael nodded noncommittally and stepped out into the cool autumn evening. As he drove to the restaurant, he couldn't help but replay the conversation that had led to this evening. Sarah ambushing him after Emma's soccer practice last week. "I've set you up on a date," she'd announced without preamble. "You've what?" Michael had nearly choked on his coffee. "A date. With a lovely woman named Claire. She's a widow, has a daughter Emma's age. She's smart, funny, and hasn't been on a date in 3 years since her husband died. And that's supposed to make me feel better about this?" Michael had asked incredulously. "No, it's supposed to make you realize you're not the only one who's scared to start over," Sarah had replied, her voice gentler. "Look, just go. If it's terrible, you never have to see her again. Consider it a practice run." "A practice run," Michael had repeated flatly. "Yes, like riding a bike. A very rusty, awkward bike." In the end, he'd agreed, mostly to shut Sarah up. "Fine. But I'm telling her up front this is a joke date, that my sister forced me into it." Sarah had grinned triumphantly. "Tell her whatever you want, just show up." Now, as Michael pulled into the parking lot of Bellini's, an upscale Italian restaurant he hadn't visited since celebrating his and Melissa's 5th anniversary, he was seriously reconsidering the whole thing. He could text Sarah that he got food poisoning, or that his car broke down, or that he'd suddenly developed a rare, highly contagious disease. But Michael Collins had never been a man who broke his word, even when that word had been given under duress from his persistent younger sister. With a deep sigh, he got out of the car and headed inside. The hostess led him to a table where a woman was already seated, her back to him. She had shoulder-length auburn hair that caught the warm lighting of the restaurant, and she was wearing a simple navy blue dress. As Michael approached, she turned, and he felt an unexpected jolt in his chest. Claire Bennett was beautiful, but not in the conventional, overwhelming way that made you stop and stare. Hers was a quiet beauty that revealed itself gradually, in the intelligence behind her green eyes, the slight asymmetry of her smile, the faint freckles across her nose that she hadn't quite covered with makeup. "Michael?" she asked, standing to greet him. "Yes, hi. Claire?" He extended his hand, which she shook firmly. "I'm sorry if I kept you waiting." "Not at all. I was early. Nervous habit." She smiled self-deprecatingly as they both sat down. There was an awkward pause as they settled in, both reaching for their water glasses at the same time. "So," Michael began, deciding to get it over with, "I should probably tell you up front that my sister basically forced me into this, not that. There's anything wrong with you? I mean, I just met you, but you seem perfectly nice. It's just that I haven't dated since my wife died, and Sarah thinks 7 years is long enough to mourn, and—" He stopped abruptly, realizing he was rambling. "I'm sorry. That came out all wrong." To his surprise, Claire laughed, a genuine warm sound that immediately put him at ease. "Would it make you feel better if I told you that my brother-in-law threatened to create an online dating profile for me if I didn't agree to this dinner?" Michael felt the tension in his shoulders release slightly. "Actually, yes, that does help. So we're both here under duress," Claire said, her eyes twinkling. "Should we call it what it is then? A joke date?" "A joke date," Michael agreed, finding himself smiling for the first time that evening. "I like that. Takes the pressure off." "Exactly. No expectations, no awkward goodnight kiss debates, no analyzing text response times afterward." "God, is that what dating is like now? I'm even more terrified." Claire nodded solemnly. "It's a jungle out there. My friend Diane showed me her dating apps. I nearly had a panic attack just watching her swipe." The waiter arrived to take their drink orders, and Michael found himself requesting a glass of red wine instead of his planned soda. Something about Claire's easy manner made him want to relax into the evening rather than rush through it. "So," Claire said after the waiter left, "tell me about your daughter. Sarah mentioned you have a 7-year-old? "Emma," Michael replied, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "She's everything. Smart, stubborn, way too perceptive for her age. She's in 2nd grade and already reading at a 5th grade level." "She sounds wonderful," Claire said. "My Lily just turned 8. She's obsessed with space right now. Wants to be an astronaut or maybe a space veterinarian because, and I quote, 'Animals might get sick in space too, Mom.'" Michael laughed. "Kids in there." Emma went through a phase where she wanted to be a dinosaur finder who also bakes cakes. A paleontologist pastry chef. I like it. Very niche market. Their conversation flowed easily after that. Moving from their children to their jobs, Michael was an architect. Claire taught high school English, to their favorite books and movies. By the time their entrees arrived, Michael had almost forgotten this was supposed to be a joke date. "So," Claire said, twirling pasta around her fork, "tell me about your wife, if that's not too forward." The question caught Michael off guard. Most people tiptoed around the subject of Melissa, afraid to upset him or unsure what to say. "Her name was Melissa," he said after a moment. "She was vibrant, always the loudest laugh in the room, but in a good way. We met in college. She spilled coffee all over my architectural drawings and then insisted on helping me redo them even though she couldn't draw a straight line to save her life." Claire smiled. "She sounds wonderful." She was. "She died during childbirth. There were complications. One minute we were about to become a family of 3, and the next—" Michael trailed off, surprised at how steady his voice remained. It had been years since he'd been able to talk about that day without his throat closing up. "I'm so sorry," Claire said softly, and Michael could tell she meant it. There was no pity in her eyes, just understanding. "What about your husband?" he asked. Claire took a sip of her wine before answering. "Tom. He was a firefighter. Died in the line of duty 3 years ago. A building collapse." She paused. "He was my high school sweetheart. We got married right after college. I never imagined life without him. And yet here we are, Michael said quietly. Here we are, Claire agreed. 2 members of a club nobody wants to join. 2 unwanted memberships, Michael said, raising his glass in a toast. Claire clinked her glass against his. And to joke dates that turn out to be not so terrible after all. Michael smiled. Definitely not terrible. As the evening progressed, Michael found himself laughing more than he had in years. Claire had a quick wit and a way of telling stories that drew him in completely. She talked about her struggles as a single mom, not with self-pity but with honesty and occasional humor that resonated deeply with Michael's own experiences. Last month, Lily needed to make a solar system model for science class, Claire was saying. I stayed up until 2 a.m. trying to get the planets to hang at different levels from this contraption we made. I was so proud of it. Then she gets home from school the next day and tells me that Saturn's rings were anatomically incorrect. Michael laughed. Anatomically, her exact words. I think she meant astronomically, but still, the critique hurt. Emma once told me my pancakes look sad compared to the ones Aunt Sarah makes, Michael offered. Kids have no filter. None whatsoever, Claire agreed. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. Me neither, Michael said, surprised by how much he meant it. There had been dark days after Melissa died when he'd felt completely overwhelmed by the responsibility of raising Emma alone. Days when he'd wondered if he was doing everything wrong, if she'd be better off with someone else. But watching his daughter grow, seeing pieces of Melissa in her smile and her determination, it had become his anchor rather than his burden. When the check came, they had a brief, good-natured argument over who would pay. It's not a real date, remember? Claire pointed out. So traditional date rules don't apply. We can split it. Or, Michael countered, since it is a joke date, we could really commit to the bit and I could pay, but in Monopoly money. Claire laughed. I'm sure the restaurant would love that. In the end, Michael insisted on paying with real money, arguing that since his sister had made the reservation, it was technically on him. Claire conceded but made him promise she could get the next one. The next one. The words hung between them as they walked to the parking lot, a question neither was quite ready to ask directly. So, Michael said as they reached Claire's car, for a joke date, that was pretty great, Claire finished for him. I had a really nice time, Michael. Me too, he admitted. It's been a long time since I've just talked to someone about everything. Claire nodded. I know what you mean. It's different talking to someone who understands, who's been there. They stood in silence for a moment, the cool night air wrapping around them. Michael found himself studying Claire's face, the way the parking lot lights caught in her hair, the slight nervousness in her smile. Would it be okay if I called you? He asked finally. Maybe we could get the kids together for a play date. Or, maybe we could do this again, a real date this time. Claire's smile widened. I'd like that. Both, actually. Michael felt a flutter of something he hadn't experienced in years. Anticipation, possibility, the sense that life might still hold surprises for him. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. I should get home to Lily, Claire said, fishing her keys from her purse. My sister-in-law has probably let her stay up way past her bedtime. Same with Emma and my sister, Michael agreed. They're probably making ice cream sundaes and watching movies I'd never approve of. Claire laughed. The perks of aunt and uncle babysitting. There was another moment of hesitation, and then Claire stepped forward and gave Michael a quick hug. It was brief, just a friendly gesture, but Michael found himself noticing the scent of her perfume, something subtle and floral, and the way she fit against him. Good night, Michael, she said as she pulled away. Thanks for making this joke date something worth remembering. Good night, Claire, he replied, watching as she got into her car. As he drove home, Michael found himself replaying moments from the evening, smiling at the memory of Claire's laugh, the way she'd listened so intently when he spoke about Melissa, the understanding in her eyes when he described his fears about raising Emma alone. When he arrived home, he found Sarah and Emma curled up on the couch watching a movie, both of them looking up expectantly as he walked in. Well, Sarah demanded. How was it? Michael tried to keep his expression neutral. It was fine. Fine? Sarah repeated incredulously. Just fine? You were gone for 3 hours. Dad, did you meet Miss Claire? Does she have a daughter? Can we meet them? Emma fired questions at him, rapid fire. Michael hung up his coat, fighting a smile. Yes, I met Claire. Yes, she has a daughter named Lily who's 8 and loves space. And yes, we might arrange a playdate soon. Emma cheered while Sarah studied him with narrowed eyes. You like her, she accused. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Your face did. Michael rolled his eyes, but he couldn't quite manage to look annoyed. It's late, Em. Time for bed. After getting Emma settled and saying goodnight to a still smirking Sarah, Michael found himself sitting on the edge of his bed. Claire's number pulled up on his phone. It was too late to text her now, he reasoned. He should wait until tomorrow. But his thumb hovered over the screen anyway. Finally, he typed, Thanks again for tonight. For a joke, it turned out pretty well. Would Saturday work for that playdate? Emma's already asking about Lily. He hit send before he could overthink it, then set his phone down and went to brush his teeth. When he returned, there was a reply waiting. Saturday works perfectly. Lily's equally curious about Emma, and yes, for a joke, it was surprisingly nice. Looking forward to the sequel. Michael found himself smiling as he got into bed. For the first time in 7 years, he fell asleep thinking not about what he had lost, but about what might still be possible. The next morning, Michael woke to Emma bouncing on the edge of his bed, already fully dressed despite it being barely 7 a.m. on a Saturday. Dad, wake up. Is today when we meet Lily and Miss Claire? You said Saturday. Michael groaned, pulling the covers over his head. I meant later today, Em, and we haven't even made plans yet. Then make them, Emma insisted, tugging at his blanket. I already picked out my outfit. See? She twirled to show off her mismatched ensemble of a sparkly skirt, striped leggings, and a t-shirt with a unicorn on it. Michael peeked out from under the covers and couldn't help but smile. You look very colorful. It's my making new friends outfit, Emma explained seriously. Aunt Sarah says first impressions are important. Does she now?